Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today. Ajib is the only Islamic bank in the Gambia. We offer Sharia compliant services, products and financing modes. Ajib have invested in ultra-modern technology in the state-of-the-art core Islamic banking software IMAL. Ajib ATMs are located in our branches at Banjul, New Joshuan, Brikama, Basse, QCell head office and Brisubi turntable. You can check your balance, withdraw cash, get your mini statement and much more. Ajib also provides 24/7 internet banking, which offers you the comfort of banking from your office or your homes. Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today and enjoy our services delivered by a team of banking professionals. For a limited time, you can get an Ajib ATM card absolutely free. For more information, contact us on 346-6666 or 327-7777. Ajib, your partnership bank.
Thank you for joining us on our QTV Business and Economy program. The Business and Economy program is intended to promote the ideals of a corporate Gambia identity with the objective of forging partnerships through dialogue between the public and the private sector, civil society organizations, and the international community. In today's episode, we shall be talking to the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Fisheries and Water Resources. The recent Sustainable Fishing Partnership Agreement, SFPA protocol for short, has come under much scrutiny from both the private sector and the public sector and the electorate at large. What does the SFPA entail? To help us answer these questions and to look into matters relating to this agreement, we have invited the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Bamba Banja. Dr. Banja, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert.
Dr. Banja, it's a pleasure to have you on the program, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for acknowledging our invitation and to also honor our invitation. The SFPA, the Sustainable Fishing Partnership Agreement, that was recently signed or is to be signed?
It's signed already.
It's signed already.
Yes.
It has gathered much interest from the public, and as usual, when facts are not established, you would hear a lot of things being said, rumors and stuff, but to help dispel of those rumors and to help ascertain the facts, we have invited you so that you could share your perspective to better inform us about the SFPA. And let me begin by making reference to the Gambian Sailors, Association of Gambian Sailors annual general meeting, which you attended, recently.
Yes.
And at that AGM, you were quoted as saying that the Sustainable Fishing Partnership Agreement is the best deal for the Gambia, especially if you put it in context vis-a-vis the other SFPAs that the EU has signed with other West African countries. Could you briefly tell us why you are of the view that this deal, Gambia has gotten a good deal, contrary to what people are saying that it's a bad deal?
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. First and foremost, I am honored really to be part of your program today. I would want to first say that fisheries is a very, very important sector. Mm-hmm. As far as the Gambia is concerned. It is a sector that has the potential to meaningfully contribute to the social and economic development of this country. Mm-hmm. We are conscious of that. And this agreement that we have signed with the European Union in October last year, precisely on the 19th of October 2018. It is a sustainable fisheries partnership agreement that we have signed and is focusing on the European Union allowing them to fish in our waters and to compensate the Gambia for access. The agreement really is focusing on two species, tuna and hake, because these are species that we both agree if they are exploited, they can still, their exploitation level can still be sustainable. This is why the European Union and the Gambia agreed to enter into this partnership. So it is an agreement that really will support the Gambia in two aspects. First, we'll have financial compensation for the country, financial compensation. And the other one is sectoral support to the fisheries sector. So it has got two components as far as the Gambia is concerned. We'll have financial compensation for the Gambia that will go to the National Treasury, but we'll also have compensation financially that Fisheries Department will use to implement its programs and activities. Yes. So we believe that this is a very good agreement for us. That's why I have said it at the annual general meeting of the Association of Gambian Sailors that it is a win-win situation for us, and it is the best agreement that the Gambia has signed. Mark you, we are all aware of the importance of the sector and hence the need to manage and develop it so that generations to come will still have access to the resources.
Thank you very much. Thanks for enlightening us in that regard. Actually, perhaps let me just make a point in relation to a couple of episodes I've held here on this same platform with the Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
And then we were looking at the 2019 budget.
Yes.
I mean, during that episode, we did not discuss fisheries in particular, but there were other sectors that were of relevance. Office of the President was one of the sectors that we discussed in terms of the budget outlay vis-a-vis, for example, the Youth Ministry. And did fisheries see this as an opportunity, if you will, to sort of bridge the gap between the funding requirements of its budgetary allocation, it not being enough, and how this 550,000 euros would help to not only bridge the gap, but also allow you and enable you to move your fisheries agenda forward in terms of sectoral development? Is this also, was this part of the reasons as to why fisheries said that, look, here's an opportunity, if we don't grab it, we wouldn't be able to move this sector as we really want this sector to move? I mean, was that part of the reason as to why the deal was signed, or wasn't it?
Well, I think, yes, that was part of it. But before coming to answer that in detail, this agreement is signed by other countries within the sub-region.
Yes, Senegal.
From Morocco right down. Because tuna and tuna-like species are seasonal and highly migratory. This is what people must understand. It's not every time that tuna is available in our waters. Even whereas they are available, they are highly migratory. Highly migratory, you see. So it is an agreement that we feel that we should sign with the European Union. And this is not the first time that the Gambia signed similar agreements. The first agreement was signed from 1990 to 1993. Then from 1993 to 1996. It was, well, formally stopped, I can say, from 1996, after the expiry of the second agreement. From that time to 2018, we had never signed an agreement with the European Union. But our neighbors have been and are still signing this agreement with the European Union. They are benefiting, whilst we are not benefiting. So we feel that we should, at the sub-regional level, also sign this agreement as a country, because our sub-regional member countries are signing, they are benefiting, whilst we are not benefiting. But if you come to the financial compensation aspect, if you look at our 2019 budget for the Ministry of Fisheries and Water Resources, the financial compensation that we will have far, far exceeds what government has allocated to the Ministry of Fisheries and Water Resources, in particular the Fisheries Department. Mark you, fisheries is a very important sector.
It's a real sector.
It is very important. So the sectoral support of 275,000 euros annually will go a long way in helping government implement its intervention activities to allow the attainment of outcome 2 in our national development plan.
You made a very good point, which I was going to come to later on, but since you've mentioned it, perhaps we could exhaust that bit. You mentioned that this is not the first time the SFPA has been signed, and rightly so. It was signed during the Jawara administration.
Yes.
And then subsequently, the initial years of the Jammeh administration,
correct,
it was equally signed.
Yes.
Then by 1996 onwards to 2018,
yes,
it was not signed.
Yes.
I mean, I know you've been in the fisheries sector for quite some time, and you're quite knowledgeable. I've worked with you, I mean, a number of times during my days in government. What, by your own reckoning, do you think might have been the reasons as to why the SFPA was not signed, especially during the entire period of the Jammeh administration? Well, most of the time of the Jammeh period.
Right.
Were there concerns by the administration that perhaps the SFPA wasn't to the benefit of Gambians, or wasn't it signed because perhaps the aspirations were that we could build this sector on our own, and perhaps we would have more value relative to what the EU is getting us? I mean, what do you think were the reasons?
Yes,
as to why they were signed?
during the early years of the Second Republic, I can fully recall when Honorable Edward Singate was our minister, they went to Brussels and negotiated with the European Union, but couldn't agree. They agreed on certain number of points, but could not agree on the financial compensation.
Okay.
So when they came back, you know, the executive said, well, forget about it. Yeah, but I can recall in 2014, when I was appointed as permanent secretary, I wrote to the office of the president and informed them that it is important that we reactivate the protocols of the agreement, because already there was this agreement. It's just to reactivate the protocols of the dormant, you know, the protocols that were not implemented. And they gave us the approval, go ahead and negotiate. Okay. Then I was out. They continued the process, but then the European Union was not willing. Okay. With the advent of this government, new government, we tried in October 2017 to reactivate the protocols and to sign the agreement. So it was going on. The Honorable Minister and my humble self were invited. We went, we discussed with the European Union. They sent here a mission to discuss with different stakeholders, you know. And the report was prepared. It was sent to all the European Union member countries. Following that, the Gambia government was contacted, said now we can go and negotiate. So we went, after almost 1 year, we went as a team. It's not just the Ministry of Fisheries. We went with the Ministry of Justice. We went with Foreign Affairs. We went with the Department of Fisheries. So it's a delegation comprising different key institutions. We negotiated as a country.
Okay. Let me come to the other bit. I mean, and as we go on, we'll discuss the specifics of of the deal. But the details of the agreement, I know when the agreement was first tabled by the Honorable Minister at the level of Parliament, he was obliged to bring the agreement for them to review in detail. And subsequently, I'm sure after doing that, the blessing has now been given and the agreement has been signed. But could you share with us the details of the agreement, especially in terms of job creation? And also the development of our fishing infrastructure, which we refer to as the sectoral developments. Where we know what the monetary value is because you've already made that explicit: 550,000 euros annually. For a period of 3 years, I think 3 years initially, and then the deal could be renewed for another, 2-year periods, if I'm correct. Overall, 6 years in total. So could you share with us what are the expectations in terms of job creation and also the sort of projects and programs that we would see for the development of the fishing sector as a result of this agreement?
Okay, fine. Before coming to that, well, the 550,000 euros is coming from the European Union. In addition, every year, the ship owners for access will pay a compensation of 350,000 euros. So annually, that's 900,000 euros. Okay? This compensation for access is independent of the fishing licensing fees that they are going to pay to allow them to fish in our waters.
Okay.
Okay? So overall, what we are going to gain as a country in terms of revenue can be more than 1 million euros annually. But for financial compensation in terms of access, it's 900,000. We know that.
Okay. So that is the 550,000 from the EU as a block,
yes,
and the 350,000 euros from the ship owner, the trawler, owners of the trawlers. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. And it is also important to say this. Following the signing of the agreement, the first thing we did was to invite the media, press conference. We told the media what the agreement is all about, because we feel that it is our moral responsibility to inform Gambians. And this is exactly what we have done, and this is what we will continue to do. Okay? And this was followed by making copies of the agreement. We've made 75 copies of the agreement and sent it to the National Assembly so that they can review it, because we want this agreement to be ratified. Those were the next steps. So we went to the National Assembly. We explained to them about the agreement and the need why we signed the agreement and why it is important for the National Assembly to ratify this agreement. We went into caucus. We dilated more. We were able to convince them, and thank God, in their wisdom, they've ratified this agreement, this very important agreement. Okay. Coming to your question, to your point, just for sectoral support, well, we are going to come up with our programs. We need to have improved fish smoking facilities along the coast. We need to improve the management of the sector. We need to support fisheries organizations, strengthen them, like the National Fisheries Platform, NASCOM, National Shoal and Cod Fishery Committee, the Tri-Oyster Women Association, Association of Gambian Sailors, the Gambia Observer Association. We need to strengthen these associations in terms of building their capacities, because we have to work with them in the overall management of the sector. Okay. We also have to fight against illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing activities, which is really a problem in this country, but overall it's a global problem, and Gambia is part of it. IUU. All right. We're also going to develop the capacities of the Fisheries Department personnel, training, bachelor's and master's degree, every year, you see. So these are going to be the benefits. This is what Gambians should understand. It's not just, 900,000, they have sold our fish or our fisheries resources. No, it's not that. And look, there is going to be a joint monitoring committee comprising the Gambian delegation and the European Union for monitoring the sectoral support activities and programs. And God willing, next week, we are going to sit down, develop our programs and our activities, because they are already aligned with our NDP, the intervention areas. This we are going to prepare, cost it, send it to the European Union regional office in Dakar. We will discuss it, go through it, agree, and then implement. So the sectoral, the revenue coming from the sectoral support, we are going to open an account. We're going to hire the services of retired fisheries personnel. We're going to have an accountant. It's going to be a unit of its own to implement this. To implement this.
I note the points that you have made in terms of the development of the fishing infrastructure, especially those relating to building capacities at the level of the department, but equally the associations, the various associations within the industry, I mean as well, and also talking of fish smoking facilities, the need to improve them. But perhaps let me just make this point, and as a result of previous engagements I've had with you during the development of the national export strategy, of which you were quite critical, and hence again making the point in terms of the relevance of the fishing industry, because the fishing industry in itself could be a big revenue earner for the government, and could also help in terms of promoting export, as a sector. So the fisheries sector is quite important, and I totally agree with you. It's one of the most important sectors, of this country, but we have not really looked into harnessing those opportunities within the sector. But you've mentioned all the benefits that are likely to accrue, but let me ask this question. I have not heard you talk of the development of a fish testing lab. I mean, you know and I know from our days of engagement in terms of the challenges of pyrene from fish smoking, and how people who were exporting smoked fish out of the country would resort to facilities in Dakar. So as a result of this program, of this agreement that has been signed, is this one of the things that would be looked at? But also, let me ask this question. And in our younger days, we used to enjoy the products of seagull.
Yes.
And yes, whilst the private sector, whilst there has been a lot of gains made, within the private sector, we're yet to see the equivalent of what used to be seagull in our fishing industry in this country. From these resources that we are going to benefit from, is there any initiative that government is doing to help us bring the country back to the seagull days? Because that in itself would perhaps help us to become independent, as long as harnessing this sector without relying on the international community, the EU in particular, since we are talking about the EU. So what is your take on those two in terms of the infrastructural development? The bit regarding establishing labs that would help us cater to some of these challenges that we've seen, the benzopyrene being one of them. But not only that, but also trying to help perhaps establish our own trawler fleet that would help us harness the resources that we have, the fishing resources that we have within the sea. But perhaps let me add a third one. When was the last trawler sweep done in country to help us realize or ascertain the stock levels that we have in the country? So are these things that perhaps this agreement would also help to address?
Okay, thank you. First, on the issue of benzopyrene, you know, the improved smoking technology, the pilot one that we have, with support from FAO that we have provided to Gunjur community, is called the FTT, FAO Charoy technology. This technology is very appropriate. It consumes less fuel and it emits less smoke. So the women, they inhale less smoke, if any. So the technology first goes a long way in improving the health of the fish processors. Also, the amount of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, these are the benzopyrenes, is reduced to acceptable levels. So we are going to upscale that because it was a pilot. So through this agreement, we are going annually, we are going to be building minimum 2 of similar facilities along the coast. The one that was provided to Gunjur, you know, according to FAO, cost about $1.9 million. You know, so we are planning to have many of those types along our coast for improved fish smoking. Well, both for domestic and export. Okay. Coming to the issue of laboratory, you know, I think the plan is at the national level to have centralized laboratories, you know, that are accredited and where our testings will be carried out locally in the country, you see, because it is very important. You know, if we are going to improve our export market, we have to make sure that we comply with standards, we meet standards in terms of food safety and quality. So going forward, it's not just a fisheries problem. This is a national issue. So we are trying to address it collectively, you know, nationally, you know, with all the key stakeholders, you know, and of course, this will bring on board the Food Safety and Quality Authority. You know, yes. So definitely, it is very important. It is very important, and hence we need to produce more to be able to make sure that when we have these laboratories, they will be utilized to the maximum. Because laboratory work is very demanding and it's expensive too. So you need to have regular supply, you know, that will make sure that the laboratory in the end becomes sustainable.
And used effectively and efficiently.
Exactly. All right. Yes. Coming to your issue of trawlers, even before coming to the trawlers, we are working very hard to make sure that the Banjul Fisheries Jetty is provided with ancillary facilities such as fish preservation and storage facilities, ice making facilities. When we have those infrastructures at the Banjul Fisheries Jetty, be rest assured, any trawler fishing in our waters will land in the Gambia, because then we will have the facilities, we will have the means to preserve the products, you know, create more economic activity for our women and youth, for Gambia Ports Authority. Then we'll be able to export containers. This is why, as a ministry, we are engaging the private sector. It's going to be a public-private partnership. You know, government provided this facility. If the private sector can come in to complement what government has already provided, then it's going to help us, but through implementing the regulation, which says that any fishing trawler operating in our waters should land in the Gambia. But as at now, we cannot implement that. You know, we do not have the necessary infrastructure to handle the products. But so that is going to be the best. That's going to be a dream come true, really.
So by and large, perhaps let me put you on the spot. Would we likely see that infrastructure being in place to the point where we're able to establish our own trawler fleet to land our own catches in the Gambia and hence create the jobs that you are talking of? Would that happen within the 6-year time frame of this existing SFPA?
Yes. Already, private sector individuals and organizations have been meeting with us, and we have also been engaging the Gambia Ports Authority, and I think already there is one company that has been identified, and very soon they will provide the infrastructure, hopefully, you know.
So we will get back to the seagull days, because we are yet to come to that question.
No, it's going to be more than the seagull days, honestly, okay. Because all the trawlers fishing in our waters will land in the Gambia here. We're going to implement that to create more and more employment for our people. Look, we want to contribute our quota so that we can achieve the outcomes set for the fisheries sector in the National Development Plan, really. Especially outcome 2, which is on value addition. Yes. There comes even aquaculture, you know, that we did not talk about.
Yes.
Yes.
Let us now look at the specifics of the contract, or the build-up to the signing of the agreement. And here I would want to make reference to when Honorable James Gomez, the Fishery Minister, was presenting his argument at the level of Parliament. He said that the EU trawlers will not fish within the 12 nautical miles of zone, which we know is the area that the artisanal fishermen using their canoes cannot go beyond, and for obvious reasons. Well, maybe some of them go beyond it. That was one of the points that he made. Look, this agreement is such that these people are going to fish in open waters, and, you know, that being the case, they would be exploiting fish that the artisanal fishermen cannot exploit. That was one of the arguments that was used. The other argument was that every trawler fishing in Gambia will have a Gambian observer on board, and that the trawler that is fishing, the agreement would provide for some employment. I believe 5 personnel were mentioned to be on board the fishing trawlers. Whilst I can relate to the first argument in terms of where the trawlers would fish and not within the 12 nautical miles or 12 nautical mile zone. This issue that there'll be an observer on the trawler, I mean, in this day and age, whoever the person is on the trawler, you know, may not even have a clue as to what is being dragged into the trawler, because the technology is advanced. I mean, you've seen how fishing is done, internationally. You know, it's not unlike, it's unlike our artisanal guys here. I mean, trawlers, everything is automated, almost. You know, where when the ship is even being loaded, when the ship is being, when the fishes are being loaded, when they're being iced, the ordinary person on the trawler as an observer would not even see all these things. Unless he is allowed. So, I'm making that point to say, even if we say that yes, we have an observer on board, what would that observer be able to see?
Okay, thank you. First, let me tell you, industrial fisheries is legislated in this country. From 0 to 9 nautical miles is reserved for artisanal fisheries, small scale. Okay. So from 9 to 12 nautical miles, certain categories of fishing trawlers, less than 250 GRT are allowed to fish. Then from 12 nautical miles and beyond, then above 250 GRT, that's where they are allowed to fish. The area reserved for artisanal fisheries really is very important, because that's where these small-scale operators carry out their fishing activities, and they provide, the fish that they provide is what is, marketed, domestically here in this country. Okay, so it is regulated. And also, it is important for people to understand that the species that this agreement is talking about are not targeted by the artisanal operators. The artisanal operators, they are priority for us as a government. It's a very important subsector. So this is why we make sure that even when the trawlers, if they fish, if they come in and fish within the 9 nautical miles, that's a violation of our legislation. This is what we call fishing in the wrong zone, and there is a penalty if you are caught. And going forward now, with technology, we are going to implement the regulation which says any fishing vessel should have an automatic identification system on board. We have the transponders. We are meeting with the agents this week coming. All the lancing vessels are going to be installed with this automatic identification systems, transponders. And the good thing about they use solar energy. So there cannot be any excuse for saying, yes, we have not recharged the transponders because we do not have electricity.
And
so these transponders...
And they would have batteries, just because most fishing is done at night as well.
Solar energy, so they will be able to trace them. We'll be able to trace them. Oh yes, without a doubt. We'll also have support from our partners in the area of IUU, because at the subregional level, we collaborate, we work together, to conduct what you call joint exercises, between 3 countries. So we are working together to make sure that these illegal practices are reduced or eliminated.
So we're looking at what? Gambia, Senegal, and who?
Guinea-Bissau. The last time.
Okay.
Yes, these 3 countries. We conducted joint surveillance, and we were able to arrest fishing boats in our waters, and they were fined $6 million. So, yes, with the help of technology, it's really going to complement the work of the Fisheries Department and, by extension, the National Navy, because we can be sitting in our office monitoring. So if there is any ship found to be violating our legislation, we will be able to trace and follow it up. But coming to the issue of the observer, any vessel that is launching to fish in our waters should have a fisheries observer on board. These observers are trained. They record the catch and the position of wherever they are, and they report this.
How do they do that? Do they have the instruments, the requisite instruments to be able to do that?
Yes, they are on board. They are, yes.
Okay.
Any vessel that is launching must have an observer. All right? And depending on the size of the vessel, must have at least minimum 20% of the crew must be Gambians. That's AGS, Association of Gambian Sailors. If it is a locally vessel, fishing vessel, then all the crew should be Gambians, except the specialized, you know, fields like captains, boatswain, and others. But if we have Gambians who are trained as captains, as engineers, they will also be on board the trawlers. So this is why we are trying to work with the Association of Gambian Sailors to develop their capacities to the different key areas, you know. Similarly, the observers as well, you know. There is an observer program, so we are engaging them, we are supporting them to develop and strengthen their capacities, because the work that they do is very, very important, very, very critical. From the data that they provide us, you know, that enable or helps us to be able to determine the catch. Hence, if you are to pay 10% of land, 10% of the catch, we will know the quantity. But they report daily, you know, all the vessels.
Let me, I want to commend your ministry and the department for that in terms of putting an observer in, within the trawlers, but also to the point where any trawler, the crew would account for 20% of Gambians. That in itself is also helping to create the jobs that we spoke about earlier. The observer position is quite an important position, given what you have said in terms of the reason why they are there in the first place. But I can only hope that we would not suffer the fate of them falling victim to what we call regulatory capture. You're supposed to regulate and provide requisite information to the people whose interests you are representing, but then for the purposes of greed and bribery, you end up not doing what you are asked to do, and you are in cahoots with the people whom you're supposed to police, because we know that regulatory capture has been a challenge vis-a-vis such initiatives. So, I don't know whether this has been thought about by you, but it is important for us to be aware of that possibility. You mentioned the initiative in terms of the joint surveillance, Gambia, Senegal, and Guinea-Bissau. But perhaps not even to speak of it at the level of these three countries, but at our own level, the Gambia. We know that one of the challenges has been the policing of our waters. And I know that this is key. And I want to ask, what initiative is it that the ministry is doing to help with the policing of our waters? I mean, I know that ordinarily this should be the responsibility of the Navy, perhaps working in conjunction with the ministry. But how would this agreement help us to help enhance our policing of our waters to ensure, for one, that illegal fishing is minimized? You spoke of the IUU, but illegal fishing is minimized. But not only that, that those who have license to fish are fishing within the zones that they are supposed to be fishing, so that when they fish within zones that they are not supposed to be fishing, that they end up paying the penalty. So what update could you give us in that regard, vis-a-vis this agreement?
Yes, first, on the issue of the observers being prone or, you know, susceptible to corrupt, what we did when we came back in 2017, the first thing we did as a ministry was to increase the salaries of the observers. The observer is paid more than a permanent secretary, you see. So by doing that, we are trying to motivate them, to encourage them. We also are supporting them in building their capacities. Look, at the end of the day, we are working for the country. So the development of the country is paramount. That is number one. One should not compromise that. You know. So we try to educate them. We try to tell them the importance of their work. It's very, very important. Because from that, we'll be able to know how much the trawlers are supposed to learn or to pay to government the value of the 10%. And this, you may be surprised, what we have generated from this 10% landings is 7 or 8 times more than what we have generated from licensing fees. You see. So it is very, very important. And we are not ready to compromise on that, because we have a responsibility, a policy objective to generate revenue and foreign exchange for this country. You see. So that is very, very crucial. We are also aware of that. It's very, very important. So this is why in our meetings with them, we always tell them that they have to be very honest, because it's our country. It's our country. We have to do our best. It is our time. When we are not there, at least those who are to come and take over will find at least that we have at least done something.
And what punitive measures are there in the event they fall victim of regulatory capture?
They can lose their job. They can lose their job.
If you lose your job and then perhaps regulatory capture have paid you $100,000 or $50,000,
you are losing. You are losing over time, because in 3 months, 4 months, when you come, that's a lot of revenue income for you. You can do, something substantial. Yes, we have seen many, many cases of that. Gambians benefiting from the Observer program following their return. So for any serious and hard-working Gambian, I think you should take this opportunity and be committed. Yes.
So, Policing, is there anything that this agreement would do? I mean, you spoke of the projects and the programs earlier as a result from this agreement, but what is it that your ministry is doing to help enhance the policing of our waters? Okay,
I will come to that, but for this agreement, let me tell viewers that the catch is recorded, is communicated, because tuna, this is why when we came, we wrote to the International Commission, all right, on the conservation of Atlantic tuna, ICAT, because you have to be a member of ICAT. And ICAT, the priority is to conserve and maintain the tuna species, tuna and tuna-like species. So the catch is going to be recorded, is going to be communicated. This is why we'll be able to know the amount that we have agreed in the agreement. If it is exceeded, we will know. If it is not, we will still know. But even if, whereas it is exceeded, they'll have to pay the Gambia the difference. You see. All right. Coming to the issue of IUU, policing. As a ministry, we are working very hard at the national level and at the sub-regional level to combat illegal and unregulated fishing activities. Okay. At the national level, we want to support the Navy with fisheries inspection vessels that are more effective and efficient, so they'll be able to police our waters, against poachers and against those who are practicing undesirable fishing methods and techniques in our waters. At the sub-regional level, we are a member of the Sub-Regional Fisheries Commission, and we have support from the European Union. We have a project, that is helping us to combat IUU and even improve this Observer program. Yes.
Let me perhaps come to the last point, and that we would have time to discuss on this program, people another one as well. Okay. The talk has been heated. People have, said that the deal that you have signed, your ministry has signed, is a bad deal. You have said, no, it's a good deal. You've given us a good overview in terms of why your ministry went into this deal and why it is a good deal. You have even informed us that in terms of benefit, what we are looking at is 900,000 euros in the minimum, depending on what obtains vis-a-vis what has been agreed. And here I would just want to share with viewers that the agreement entails that, the vessels that are licensed and do fish within the waters, the maximum they are allowed is 3,300 tons of tuna and tuna-like species and 750 tons of hake.
Yeah.
And you have told us that in the event there are observers on board, and the way you have this automatic transmission system through the transponders, we'll be able to know exactly what is caught and how much is caught, whether it's above or below the limit that has been agreed. Some of the people who said that this is a bad deal have done a basic calculation, and I'm sure you know where I'm coming from. They have looked at, what the cost of a kilo of tuna is, tuna and tuna-like species. And this can go anywhere from 1.5 euros to 2.5 euros, depending on the weight and also the quality of the tuna in question. Now, if you take those two extreme in terms of kilos of tuna, you're looking at, because 3,300 tons is 3,300,000 kilos. So if you do the mathematics, then it means that from a catch of 3,300, if at all that's what they caught, you're looking at 4.6 million euros to 7.9 million euros. And they have used that rough mathematics and say, wait a minute, if we're getting 900,000, some of them even say 550,000 euros, then this is a bad deal. Now, what do you have to say to that rough calculation that people have done that are saying that this deal is a bad deal?
People are entitled to their own opinions and views. I think that's the beauty of democracy. But it is important for people and viewers also to understand that we are a responsible ministry. Whatever we do, we will make sure, of course, the interest of this country is not compromised. People must understand you need a fishing trawler to go and catch the tuna fishing trawler. You need tons and tons and tons of fuel to go into the high seas to fish. You need the nets. People forgot about that. You need the fishing nets. All right? You need the personnel. You need your operating costs.
And the insurance.
And the insurance. You know. So, just concluding by saying that, yes, the tuna is 1 or 2.5 euros per kilo or per what, then trying to, relate that in terms of what revenue against what we have signed. I think, that's big mistake on the side of the people, They use a lot of funds to be able to catch the fish. All right? Even putting it in our context here, if you need an artisanal boat, fishing net, and outboard engine, these are very, very expensive. You need the people. You have to pay them. You have to buy fuel daily, So at the end of the day, what you catch and against your expenses, you see that the margin is not that high, you see. But people don't understand that. They just make a rough calculation. Another important thing that people should understand is the benefits that we are going to gain as a country to help us develop and manage this sector. You cannot attach any monetary value to that, honestly. Building the capacities of the people, organizations working together to protect and manage, develop the sector on a sustainable basis. My friend. And this agreement, if we are not satisfied, we can terminate it. But that is not in our thinking. That is not, because our neighbors are benefiting. They are developing their sectors. They are building the capacities of their personnel. We also have to do the same thing. And this is an opportunity for us to do that, to manage and develop the sector. This is important.
Let me come to the last question, because I'm sure our time is almost up. But in view of the controversies that have surrounded this agreement that ultimately has been signed, and in view of the points that you have made as a ministry and as a fishing department responsible for the advancement of this crucial sector, what is your thinking in terms of going forward, the possibility for a wider stakeholder engagement as to signing of such deals that relate and has cross-cutting implications on the economy? Perhaps, maybe, people are crying foul, or people are saying this is a bad deal because they are of the view that relevant stakeholders who should have been consulted have not been consulted. I'm just guessing from making this point. I know you mentioned that when this deal was being signed, the Ministry of Justice was involved, Foreign Affairs was involved, and your department and ministry were involved. But perhaps engaging the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency could have made a difference. Engaging the NAMS even before this deal was being finalized could have made a difference. So in your view, going forward, and for the sake of best practice, do you perhaps think that this is an area that perhaps we need to look at, not necessarily your sector, but any other sector within the real sector especially, before we try to convince or sign such deals? Do you think that would make a difference or help in terms of getting the electorate's approval and support of such agreements?
Yes. This is true, but always agreements, when they are to be discussed, they involve stakeholders, different important key stakeholders. And as far as the fisheries sector is concerned, any agreement that we are to discuss, we engage the Ministry of Justice, Foreign Affairs, Defense, the Navy, our ministry and the department. But yes, we can widen up, engage the National Assembly, GAIPA also. But as a sector, we believe in co-management, where government and the stakeholders will come together and manage the resources. So in essence, what you are saying is in line with our thinking, with our policies, and with our programs. Because we work with the stakeholders to manage the resources. In fact, just a couple of weeks back, we were engaged on a nationwide consultation with stakeholders, both in the fisheries and water sectors. And the key message that we have been sending to them or telling them is that we have to work together to manage our resources, even at the local level. Because we want them to be responsible. It is their resources. So they have to manage it, of course, with support from government and our development partners. And there is co-management. That's the word.
Well, viewers, this was all we had for you in today's episode discussing the SFPA, the Sustainable Fishing Partnership Agreement. You have heard the inputs from the Permanent Secretary and his views and those of his ministry in terms of why this deal was signed. We have tried to bring you the facts for us to understand what underpinned this deal. Dr. Banja, it was a pleasure having you on the program. We thank you for coming on Business and Economy to clarify issues. We wish you the very best of success with this agreement, and we do hope, and I look forward to that day, that we would surpass the Seagull days, because I used to enjoy some good fish in those days.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
well, you should have given me at least 1 minute. Let me say this. You know, we are very happy that we have been invited to this program. We will encourage this. We are more than willing. We will continue. We will continue to give out information to the public. We will always be consulting with the public. You know, our doors are open. Our doors are open. You don't need an appointment to see us. You know, our doors are open, and we will always be informing the public on whatever we are doing. We are not afraid. This is national development.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. We wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today. Ajib is the only Islamic bank in the Gambia. We offer Sharia compliant services, products and financing modes. Ajib have invested in ultra-modern technology in the state-of-the-art core Islamic banking software IMAL. Ajib ATMs are located in our branches at Banjul, New Joshuan, Brikama, Basse, QCell head office and Busubi turntable. You can check your balance, withdraw cash, get your mini statement and much more. Ajib also provides 24/7 internet banking, which offers you the comfort of banking from your office or your homes. Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today and enjoy our services delivered by a team of banking professionals. For a limited time, you can get an Ajib ATM card absolutely free. For more information, contact us on 346-6666 or 327-7777. Ajib, your partnership bank.